Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to this week's enrichment reading. We are going to be having an interesting enrichment reading, I will say. I was talking to my guides, and I was talking to my guides about injustice, which is something that I do like every 15 minutes. Like if there's silence and if there's a moment of silence, my mind begins to scan the universe for examples of injustice that I then tell my guides about. Like this is, yeah. So I was having one of my regular, injustice conversations with my guides, reporting as usual, the injustices that I happen to notice that morning or afternoon. And this is not a good habit, by the way. This is like unhealthy. But my guides were basically saying to me, like, I don't know why you don't just bring it up with the angel of justice, and I'm like, as if that's the thing, because I never met an angel of justice. I've seen angelic forces bring justice. I've seen guides bring justice, but I always think about the justice is operating in an impersonal ecosystem rather than being like, vengeance for my enemies. Although I have seen my guides do something, right? They are capable. But the bottom line is like, by and large, I think of justice as not someplace that you arrive at, not a finished place. Like it's something that's always in the process of becoming. It's an arc. It's not something that you get and then you have it. It's something that's always in development. So I never really thought about there being something like a angel of justice. So I was complaining to my guide, and my guide was like, why don't you just bring it up with the angel of justice? And I, contented and anxiety. Interesting. And bones. Yeah. And so I said, well, if there's such a thing as an angel of justice, like bring them to me. Like I have words. We need a moment. Like it really, because I've been fighting with or for, justice in my life and the lives of others for as long as I can remember breathing. It's something that comes with living as me. And there's so much there. But the bottom line is this is a very interesting enrichment reading because I'm taking on this angel of justice that my guide sort of brought to me. I don't even know much about this energy. It's kind of a strange energy, I'll be honest with you. Like the look of this angel all angels look scary and weird to me, but like this one's kind of special. So it's big and dark, which is interesting. And so let's go into it. And so I'm not channeling this energy directly. It's more like how I would talk to an energy than to bring one through. I do a lot of talking to energies before I'm willing to bring them through. And I'm willing to bring my ascended ancestors and ascended guides and my highest self through in terms of what it means to negotiate with this energy and conversation. But I'm not going to be channeling this energy directly. So it's a different approach than we normally take. With topsy-turvy at the bottom of the deck, contented and shelter, anxiety and metamorphosis, and bones and ebb. The cards that this energy is bringing out, so the thing is like justice and this energy of justice, if I can allow myself to feel into it a little bit. My responses are angry, sad, grievous, angry, bigger grief, angry. And part of the reason that the angel of justice looks like a big, dark, gnarly thing is because I have issues with it. And because my projection is going to play a part in how I'm able to perceive this energy and interact with this energy. Like there's always the part of my projection that I have to overcome in order to have access. So that's a good little lesson for you in terms of what it means to encounter a hairy scary in the other world, is to understand that part of that might be what that energy is holding and willing to hold that needs to be disentangled. It's a neutral something that is menacing with that consciousness. And part of it can be if it's an energy like an angel or an angel of justice, your projection plays a part. And so my projection with this energy with bones and ebb and the Thantos and the web here is one where I look at justice and I look at injustice, and the first thing that I think when I think about justice and injustice is, why do all the people who deserve to be torn from limb to limb, walking happy, successful, stealing, you know what I mean? Why do we have to endure a world where the worst people seem to advance the best, right? You know, why do we have to endure a world where people who are doing horrible things and know that they're doing horrible things get away with it and even seem to experience some level of reward because they keep going, they keep doing it. And so there's not something in the ecosystem that is discouraging evil acts and evil intents and disgustingness. There seems to be the opposite. It's almost like the energies that are at play in the universe in terms of humanity are doing something that would destroy the world instead of like preserve it. So it's a very deep and troubling thing when we think about something like injustice as being much more prominent than any examples of justice, and whatever is represented as that God, as an archetype in the shadow and the archetype that moves into the light. It has both aspects, yin yang, infinity symbol. Like, why are we in the shadow? Why are we as humanity having to deal with the shadow of the angel of justice, which is injustice, which is, again, I feel such a rush of anger. I want to like take this energy and be like, I don't care how big you are and how scary and how nasty you are and how much you feel like the most rancid. I will go into the arena with you. And I have gone into this arena with this energy before. But the fact of the matter is like, what does it mean? You know, like I'm kind of looking at the energy and I'm saying like, what does it mean with these cards? Because like, what does it mean that you serve injustice? You know what I mean? Like that you don't seem to be in your ascended end of doling out justice. You seem to be in the shadow end of manipulation, stealing, and rewarding the monsters. So with the World card being about a new chapter, the Page of Pentacles and the Page of Wands is actually related to a type of pacing, which is interesting, and the Lovers card, which is about graduating. And so there's some aspect of Earth School. Two of Pentacles here. There's some aspect of Earth School, because this world is like the cycle, you know, the life cycle, and the samsara, like the round and round. There is some aspect of what it means to like be in this Earth School that entails a maturation where we have to come up against the stuff that is going to refine our sense of justice and injustice and where we want to be in relationship to justice. I want to be in relationship to justice where no matter what happens, I'm doing the right thing and I'm making the right decisions and I'm having the appropriate response to what's going on. Like that's my choice. And so like with that choice, I empower justice, right? With somebody else's choice to like steal and like feel like smug about it and like dehumanize another person and continue to steal, like that might have short-term gains, but it's that person aligning with injustice as where they're placing themselves in relationship to a thing, to an energy, to a God. They're saying, I'm on this dark shadow side of what it means to relate to justice, and this is where I'm staying because I'm going to continue to participate in the side of justice that is injustice instead of participating in the side of justice that is justice. Now, to participate in the side of justice that is justice, you have to forgive, which is why I'm still in an early relationship with justice, because I feel like I can't forgive the things that people do. And it is, you know, and this is sort of where we are with this question and with even attending to this question is, what does it mean to be in the shadow side of justice, either because of something that you're doing or something that somebody else is willing to do to you? And how do you get yourself out of that and into a place where you're operating as justice, with justice, for justice, and in the ascended light kind of a form, as a part of like that movement in humanity towards like a greater, not self-destructive part of the one, you know? There's a lot that goes into this. So if you're going to participate in this way, you have to be able to bring forgiveness, because you have to be able to look at the people that are operating for and with injustice and their wanton willingness to ruin humanity and the world, and doing so by little raindrops of shittiness. And that is like most people, unfortunately, are willing to be like that, because we are in a world where they perceive themselves to be in some kind of competition, and wherever that being able to be in injustice like that, there's so much there about like this world is sort of predispositioned for people to much more likely end up on the side of participating in injustice than participating in justice. There is a world of traps that's meant to keep us in this cycle of these cycles of life with the World card, where we are not graduating, we are not spiritually maturing, we are not getting out of having to do it again and again and again and again and again to make up for every injustice that we were willing to participate in. And the gods will not have a relationship with people who are willing to participate in injustice. Other energies will. They'll operate in the shadow end of everything if they're willing to participate in knowingly advancing injustice. Innocently and ignorantly advancing injustice, it doesn't have quite that effect. But knowingly doing something wrong to another person will put you in a position where the only energies willing to mess with you and be around you and interact with you are manipulative, and they want to tear you down, and they will build you all the way up to tear you down too. And so like the punishment, when we think about the ecosystem and like the good and the evil, is that if you are aligning with forces of evil, and that means picking those energies that are neutral up and holding them in your consciousness and bringing them into the world with you and making any gains by way of what even you might think is like a white lie or like an acceptable harming of another. Dehumanizing another is a good example of participating in injustice. No matter what you're doing, if you're looking at another person and you feel better than them and you feel entitled to any part of what it means to like put them somewhere that it's, you know, where they're below you, like that supremacy nonsense, that's so many years of karma. And it feels like a little droplet of that smug, delicious feeling when you're standing in line at the supermarket. You just feel a little bit better than someone and you can, you know, point it out. Like that itself will really hurt you, right? And that's a tendency that we are predispositioned towards. And so like there is a justice, and it is at play, and it is related to these cycles of life and reincarnation and karma, but it's also going to separate you from being in good graces with any aspect of the universe or force of the universe that holds consciousness that is in good graces. It will position you in a type of hell. and the satisfaction, smug, delicious, my little betterness, supremacy, or like delicious, I'm just taking a little bit, like it doesn't matter. Like that's gonna be the seductive sort of part. The predisposition, the entrapment, you know, of this world to keep you from access to the greater, like your greater power, like the greater gods, those energies that are beyond that pettiness or beyond those types of behaviors that will work with you if you are beyond those things. And so there's a lot of reward to being of good character. There's a lot of reward to making the right decisions, but that reward is going to be like not necessarily like the things that you might notice as a reward. I mean, there's some aspect of that because this web here, and when I think about this energy, and I just think like you're just a monster. The angel of justice in my mind is just a monster because I can't see past watching what I perceive is like person after person after person after person after person after person making the decision to take a dropper full of crappiness and drop it into an ocean that then floods the world. You know, and that is a position of supremacy, right? And so like when we start to think about and break down this notion of vengeance, we always sort of have to come back to ourselves a little bit and think about the channeling that this energy just brought through me, where I'm like, I am enraged, and I'm like, who wants to take that little dropper of supremacy and like really pointing my finger, you know? And then this energy is basically saying, and you're sitting there in supremacy, right? And I am. I'm sitting there and I'm judging everyone who's like willing to have like a bad day and make it somebody else's bad day. I'm judging everybody who is willing to put their hands on the wounds of others to prove themselves. I'm judging everybody who is willing to take somebody's work that was born of their suffering and make it their own profit without ever crediting it. Like there's so many ways, you know, that we can find in the universe to diagnose and point out where somebody is in terms of what they're bringing into the world and what they're contributing in. But when we think about ourselves, and we think about the fact that like I'm dealing with a demon of injustice, that I have so much supremacy related to the way that I see other people acting, that I'm not on the ascended aspect of what it means to participate in justice. And like my real square absolute reason for that is an inability to forgive. My inability to forgive means I'm placing myself higher than somebody else who, like, for whatever reason, I am seeing something that I don't like, right? And so when we think about this anxiety and this metamorphosis, and this contented and this shelter, a lot of people can judge from the inside of their caves. A lot of people can judge from the emptiness within themselves. There's something to be said about what that contented place of our shadows, and like our shadow meets the shadow of injustice. Our shadow meets the shadow of cruelty. Like our shadows meet the shadows. And then that shadow can be something that we actively fight against, overcome, and tame, and develop some form of relationship with. Sometimes we need to have a good relationship with our shadow to defend ourselves. So there is a greater system of justice. If you participate with injustice, you're going to be stuck with injustice. But that's a much bigger picture than you make the right decisions and don't do the crappy things, or you make the wrong decisions and participate in the crappy things. Because even if you're making every single right decision, but all of those right decisions just serve to put you on a pedestal of your own making, instead of allowing you to connect and be a part of the growth process that everybody is a part of. There is an aspect with Bones and Ebb where we have to defend ourselves. But there's this other aspect that says, how much creative capacity, how much are you allowing the shitty things that other people are willing to do to you to keep you from the greatness that you are capable of? Because you can have your energy siphoned in any number of ways. You're going to have your energy siphoned if you show up in the world and have anything of value, because there are people who are bottomless pits of need, who do not know who they are, that will always seek to satisfy themselves in some imaginary delusional competition, or in some imaginary delusional something. Like there are always going to be people that are willing to hold the most rancid energies to give themselves an ounce of escape from the very real and lived reality that they do not know who they are, and that they can only position themselves in relationship to the things that they want, that are in other people, that are represented by other people. And their whole shit, in one way or another, is acquisition, holding territory, and conquering. And they are operating as those colonizing ancestors without even realizing it, in one way or another. And I'm pointing out the colonizers because, like, this is why, like, privilege even operates the way that it does. Because that's it just happens to be a very good example. But how do we escape from the fact with the web there that the only way to not participate with the monster of injustice, and that's either by like actively, like judging others, or by doing things that are like worthy of judgment, like whatever that ends up being, it's your job and you need to. And in some way it is like your responsibility to forgive, let go of, like undo the quantum entanglement with injustice that you have by whatever behavior is making that quantum entanglement, whatever that vengeance inducing kind of thing is, and move into that place of justice. Because with the topsy-turvy being that it's not really about, we think it's about good and evil and making the right and wrong decision and heaven and hell and like some judgment, book somewhere. And that really screws us up, because when we look at this vision, we're able to see that it's the people who are willing to hold energies that make the world a worse place, that participate in forms of competition that are disabling for people, like whatever that is. And it can even go into because I have like a long list of anger, grievance. I don't want to forgive this person. I don't want to forgive that person. How dare they? How dare that? I can go back all the way to the very beginning and like present a list, like an indictment with every slight that anyone has ever levied against me or anyone else that doesn't make me a good person. That makes me like a really bad person, because where's my focus? It's on judging people, right? So judging people, judging situations. And even if you are an excellent judge, I pity the excellent judge, because I am the excellent judge. That's still casting a light and putting a view on others that is wanting to see them hurt for their actions, right? And so that's an alchemy that you don't want in one way or another. And so like when we struggle with this notion of forgiveness, when we have a hard time with forgiveness, it's more than just letting us, like, you know, the technology of release that lets us go. It's a lot more than that. Like a lot more than that. Forgiveness is quite literally like your way out of hell. Like there is some value to the Jesus lessons along the line of like forgiveness. Like Jesus is a good example of like a prophet that was legitimate, a prophet that had legitimate wisdom. That prophet brought that legitimate wisdom from divine places, from divine spaces, from divine energies into the world. And that prophet had a lot to offer. And because that prophet had such good messages, because that prophet had so much to offer in the way of legitimate divine intervention and wisdom that creates this bridge, the technology of forgiveness came through the movement of that prophet's energy. And now we have it, and look at the value of what it actually can do in terms of setting me free and setting you free from a karmic wheel that can keep us trapped forever. So like this is that way, that journey, that wisdom came through the prophet, right? In a very legitimate way. The world is not free. People do not treat each other equally. We have not been able to take that wisdom and bring it into a practice that creates for a world that wisdom offers, because it's been taken by the industry of the empire and then packaged and sold in the marketplace of the charlatans for each and every person's individual advancement of their own ego. And now we have a very good message that is used to destroy the world, and that people can participate in any way they want. And it has nothing to do with how the message came into the world. It just has to do with the nature of the world. And so when we're contending with human nature and aspects of human nature that take every good thing and turn it into something to buy and sell, and that buying and selling has to do with gaining worth in a society that says you gain worth by buying and selling. The message is true, not the whole religion around it, not the dogma, but the prophet's message is fine. But what people can do with any message when it comes to buying and selling, when it comes to false senses of worth, when it comes to the nature of human nature in a society that is participating in the injustice that is ongoing, because it's not just like the petty stuff. Like the visions I'm seeing while I'm talking about this are the miners, the 5-year-old miners mining materials for the cell phone. And somehow it can be rationalized away that their lives don't matter, because even if they matter in theory, you're still going to buy that phone. And the same can be said for anything that anyone produces. If the person who is doing the acquisition, the holding territory, and the conquering, it's a movement, it's energies, it's a dance. Anyone participating in the dance, it's not really a political argument. It's a spiritual argument, very, very much at the core of what it means to be within a world that is either participating with justice or participating in injustice. And participating in injustice is diagnosing, but not changing your own heart and your own self. Just as much as participating with injustice is taking a little bit here, taking a little bit there. It's okay, this is how it's done, and we are okay with this, and it's fine. If there's a check in your spirit, it's not fine. And so the world looks a certain way because of how people are willing to participate with the energies that are available to them in that world. And yes, there are stories that very organically position all of us against each other. But if we can't look at these things honestly and then step into a place of forgiveness for others, forgiveness for ourselves, and then transcend what it means to be the judge and start operating from the place of creating, doing, making solutions. Like, that's the big movement. Because if I'm always sucked into looking at the way that people are screwing me over, or looking at the way that people are screwing other people over, or seeing that like the whole world does not end up evolving to a place where the kingdom of heaven is on earth, unless in consensus we stop operating the way that we're operating. But it is possible to actually have even a relationship with our ancestors in ways that are unimaginable to us, because we keep on stopping the progress by caring only about our personal progress. I was talking to our ancestors with Bones and Ab. This is something that's coming through that I think it's like a personal conversation that I had. But, and it's funny, like, you know, when I joke with my ancestors about the kind of way that I read tarot, and I'm always like saying that, you know, it's like an annoying preacher, you know, and this is very much feeling like a fire and brimstone sort of message. But when I was talking to my ancestors about, and I just kind of, where was I with this? I kind of lost it because they were like, you're off track here. And like, they were bringing me into it with the bones on the hips. I have to look at that for a second. You know, we're in this moment of time. I think that that's maybe was supposed to be private. You know, we're in this moment of time where we're talking about this major shift, and this shift that is happening, and this shift that, you know, we're a part of, and the shift that like we're feeling, and oh my gosh, can you feel the shift? But so much of what it means for this shift to occur is for like each and every one of us to be making those decisions about the direction that we're each going toward, and in relationship to each other. And that's always going to be what it is. And so when we have a poor opinion of humans, and when we have a poor opinion of the world that we're in, and when we have a poor opinion of what it means to, I'm losing this channel. I'm getting a lot that's hitting me at once, and it's overwhelming me. So I gotta find my footing. Topsy-turvy for sure. You know, the bones is hard because it's like, you know, we carry all of the hurts and the slights against us with us. And it really does hurt to look at people who are willing to hurt us and are willing to participate in things that are detrimental to our own success or our own growth. They're willing to sort of deprive the world and themselves, you know. It is hard to feel like, well, you know, I'm just going to forgive them and it's just going to like let them off the hook. But you need to be let off the hook too. Like, so like when I go back to this notion of like the technology of forgiveness as brought through like prophetically by energies represented, you know, in that Christ archetype, like that is an energy that some prophet channeled properly, because we've got the message and it's a really good, really true message. But the application and the world's ability to advance as a result of it is up against human nature. And what it's up against in human nature, it's up against human nature in each and every one of us. Because we can take that message of forgiveness and we can figure out that it is something that will allow us to excel at such a level that's like prophet level. And you know, like that technology used appropriately will give you a level of superpowers that is better than any advantage that you could possibly have. But to get there, you have to be able to look at the world and look at where people are coming from and actually be able to forgive them. Now, we remember that what was channeled through about forgiveness is a sublimation process. Sublimating to the bigger picture. So it's important that we're able to sublimate to the bigger picture. If you feel like everybody who hurts you gets away with it, then forgiveness can be almost impossible. I can guarantee you that no one gets away with hurting you. Like, absolutely not, in no way, shape, or form. Especially if you are on the ascended side of the equation. With growth and going through your trials and tribulations and getting in touch with yourself and healing yourself, and like all of the things that go into the process of building in character, building integrity, being on the part of the world that is participating in being the change they want to see in the world. On the up and up, not playing reindeer games, to try and get another little ounce or dribble of success, or to get that hit of dopamine. Like people who are like legitimately in the world, like bringing in a better world, because it's the hardest work that there is. They've developed such a relationship with the ascended aspects of the divine that the ascended aspects of the divine adopt them in. Like there is so much to the way that we have been taught about systems of belief, and the way that systems of belief, interact with our ancestors. Oh, here has the ebb and bones. I saw systems of belief that interact with our ancestors, and all the other things. And there's always a little bit of truth in every good lie. And when it comes to religion, the dogma, the supremacy of it, that's all a lie. But the truth is what they take from the actual prophets, like, and they can just package it up and put a little bow on it and say like, nope, this is ours, this is Christianity, like this isn't coming from the divine, and ruin the world with that effort, and whether they're selling Christianity or they're selling themselves, like they're still not the divine channel, right? And so what we have here in terms of like what it means to think about these energies of the divine that need a channel that is refined enough and able to sort of to be able to bring these things into the world, to achieve this level of coherence, and like what those people who are able to like do that have to go through to get there. It is unimaginable what people have to do to get there. And because in the ancient world, power was held by those who earned it, and it was given to them, and people could look at them and say, that person has power. That person is connected to the divine. That person is bringing through the real deal. And that person would then elevate based on what they were holding and what they're doing. We don't really live in that world anymore because it's so fractured that the people who are genuine, by the time the stuff it's like almost instantaneous. The empire like picks it up, packages it, commercial bullshit, like we're a marketplace of, charlatans, like, you know what I mean? Like throw it out, who cares, and there is no depth to what they're offering. And then the world sees no depth to what is real, because the world's not getting what is real. They're getting what is packaged and sold. And so like, we have to look at our part in this and really think about what it means to simultaneously allow people to be doing the wrong shit until they can do the right shit. You know what I mean? Like having forgiveness when it comes to diagnosing every problem and feeling like if you're not seeing the justice, then there is no justice. And if you're not seeing the justice, then the only way to protect yourself is to diagnose the justice. And all that does is give you a supremacy hit that keeps you far from everybody and what it would even mean to sort of like interact with everybody. Yes, we have to identify that there are certain people that are absolutely so consumed by the shadow end of injustice and everything that is represented, they're not even there. You know what I mean? And they really just are all of those shadow energies, like operating on some automatic pilot of like an ancestor's demise. Their life will go nowhere. They will be miserable forever. Like that's a lot of people willing to do that stuff. But it's not really our place to point the finger necessarily. Like you could notice that somebody is a bad actor. You can notice that somebody's bad actor things are trifling and always a problem, and it's just never going to get any better because the people are willing to make that choice, the delicious supremacy of whatever it is that they're doing, and continue in the this world is a terrible place. And a lot of that comes from a learned helplessness that says everybody's doing it. Well, I have to. If I don't do it, like, how will I get by? Everybody, like that. There's so many ways in which we get like lost in that, and I'm getting lost in it even right now. That keeps us from just being free from it. Because I'll tell you, with this maturity here, the spiritual maturity, you reach a certain spiritual maturity. You're on the side of you have a relationship established with divine energies. You have a relationship established with divine forces. The divine is aware of you and knows what you're capable of and knows what you have done for them. That's reward. That's reward in where you're going to be positioned. That's reward in who you're going to meet. That's reward in how people are going to react to you. That's reward in what you're going to be given in the way of inspiration. That's reward in when you're going to give, what you're given in the way of opportunity. And no, it does not look like the success of somebody who's full of shit and with the shadow forces. The success of people with shadow forces is really quick. And you see that because there's a whole program involved in emptying someone else out. Like there's this way in which, like, when we see, like, when we're sort of like looking at the world and we're like, there's no progress, only the evil people get things, regular people like get trampled over and, extorted and like horrible things. But the bottom line is the process of justice is actually very slow. The process of justice is very interesting. There is a truth to this wheel of time that is very, I don't think I've never even seen this talked about before, but I've seen examples of it. There's a truth to the wheel of time with this King of Wands here, like fire. I mean, there's a truth to this. Let me just center myself a little bit because this is something I don't think I've ever brought through, and I'm a little hesitant. But we're in a closed system. We're within a body. That body is eternal. It grows. The way it grows is it expands. It's much more the rings of a tree than it is like a person with arms and legs. And we're fixed in what we feel is the arrow of time from one place to another, but we're really in a circle of time. And even within the lifespan that you are in right now, and like this is so tricky to talk about because I never want to say that people deserve the life that they have or the life that they got when their life has been nothing but abuse. Because if you are in any way a prophet, or if you are in any way an ascended and like energy that's here to help, if you are some form of a starseed, like you will have nothing but opposition, and you will be and the energies and the forces, that are extorting, and that work to empty people out for the purpose of driving them like a car. They take life, you know what I mean? So you are an enemy of that infrastructure, and you will have a very hard, absolutely like difficult experience that has nothing to do with your karma. That's a reality. And I'm so careful about that because there's also an adjacent reality that is karma is alive and well and kicking in the lives of those who are willing to make decisions that hurt other people. And it's a proportional response, but it's a response that happens throughout the lifespan outside of the confines of time. So if you're participating in hurting someone, then, like, how do I put this? If you are stealing somebody else's labor, then you may be in a place in your life where you just escaped a lifetime of having everyone extort your labor. And you might feel entitled to somebody else's labor because of this experience of having a life where everyone just extorted your labor. But the truth is, you experienced all that hardship because of these decisions right now. These things operate outside of time. So all of the extortion of labor that is justifying the extortion of somebody else's labor is also something that you had to suffer because you're willing to extort someone's labor. Like, that's how nuanced the ecosystem of justice is. And it's also how like wildly insane the ecosystem of injustice is, because you're not really paying for the crimes of this life and the next life. A lot of them you've already paid for, and you've paid for crimes in the past that you're going to commit in the future, because that's how it works. And that's where there's no free will. And that's where the subjugation of the bigger picture, like we can forgive by that subjugation of the bigger picture. When we understand that justice is an ongoing process throughout the lifespan that's constantly making adjustments, and that the nature of how this angel works is that there will be absolute karma, and that where it goes off the rails is when people are made aware of their mistakes, They see that they're doing something wrong. They're willing to ignore that they're doing something wrong. They're willing to persist in doing something wrong. And this is after they've been able to even sort of identify that the experience they're having is something that they've experienced all their lives. That's a place of knowing where you are visiting upon another what has been visited upon you. So like you are going to have that visited upon you because of a choice that happens somewhere in time. But because we're in a tree and cycles and in expanding, you're going to go over it. You're going to go over these experiences over and over again. What it means to escape from this like lifetimes of reliving these experiences over and over again, samsara, and not, being spiritually immature until you are spiritually mature enough to like graduate, to move beyond the womb of the world. Like it is a trap, and it's a trap that we participate in when we just make these choices over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so even if you already paid for taking somebody's labor, and because you had a lifetime of having your labor taken and now you feel entitled to other people's labor, even if that's true, if you still decide to persist, all of the energies that feel entitled to you and your life and your potential and your gifts are going to have open season on you in that cycle after 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 cycles. And this can go on forever. And this can be nothing but an existence of misery. But when you're able to stop short and say, I experienced that all of my life. My labor was extorted and taken from me all of my life. Somebody else just took everything from me and I lost all of those years. I'm not willing to take from someone in any way, even if I think it's a little way, because I have an understanding of that. The minute you make that decision, you basically unlock the karma of the past and you release yourself from open season with the energies that are happy to participate in your own demise. And you move yourself towards energies that are all about your deliverance and the deliverance of the world. Because now you're participating with the deliverance of the world. You belong to the deliverance of the world. You belong to the ascendant energies that are working on you, escaping this system of karma and moving into spiritual maturation and leveling up. And that's basically like the work of understanding, like this net, it is here to catch everybody who is willing to catch somebody else. And I use the example of labor because I keep on seeing those coal mines, and it's so tricky because I'm filming this with a cell phone. And I know damn well we can't dismantle a system that has been established around dehumanizing those that we are like it's cannibalism. Like the whole damn thing is cannibalism. And so like we are in a system of sustenance that is cannibalism. So it's not easy to step outside of. But when we become aware, and there's like a very big distance between the cobalt mine. I don't know if it's cobalt. I don't really know what they're mining. I'm just seeing the mine. There's a very long distance between the person in the mine, the 5-year-old in the mind, same thing, there's a very long distance from that place and you in a certain kind of a way. But when it comes to your life and the people that you can reach and the things and what you're able to hold with that reach, if you're not creating a net that is not only going to save the person that you can reach, but also extend all the way to that mind, then you're participating in what it is to snip these little, there's a net that's meant to hold everybody. And if you are there with a scissor, me, my personal interests, my success, my attention, my this, my that, if that's what you're doing and you're not creating a net of this is where that came from, this is where that came from, let's hold hands together, let's lift each other up together. If you're not doing that and you're in the business of, that person doesn't deserve this and I deserve this and this doesn't, and me and me and me. Like if that's all that's going on, and like there's so many ways that we can do this. I do it every single time I look at somebody and think to myself, like, I know what you're doing, I see what you're doing, it's disgusting. You have no idea the mess that you're making in terms of the energies that roll with me. Good luck on the next 6,000 years of your development. Like, I do that a lot. I don't lift a finger. I don't curse anybody. Like, but I definitely know, like, that's part of why I turn to my guides, like, every time there's silence, and I, like, I'm at the supermarket and I say, you see that person over there? You know what that person over there is doing to their kid? Are you going to get involved? What are you doing? This world isn't just, how dare you? You know what I mean? Now, if I were to take a little bit more time with that person and their kid, I would see a much bigger picture, which is the picture that the guides that walk with me and operate through me and, are my infrastructure of spiritual assistance. They see a much bigger picture. They're going to note that injustice because I'm standing there and they're in relationship with me. And there will be something that will happen. I know that's part of why I am on an endless tirade of complaints. But they also know that the potential that I have and what I have to offer to the world and what I have to give to the world is circumvented and not getting into the world and in no way having the effect that they would want it to have, because I'm hanging out with injustice and I'm spending all that time and all that energy clocking the ways that people are being crappy, making a mental note of it. I don't lift a finger because I know that's going to make it worse for them. But that is fucked up. You know what I mean? And I think that, like, when I sat down, like the ring, this commitment and the riddle, when I sat down with, I haven't pulled a single card. This has been one of those readings. Like, these are just, basically everything that I've said. The contented and the shelter is like, the contented shelter of your echo chamber of superiority, whatever that is. Like, that's a part of the problem. What about the danger of the people who are willing to hold supremacy and kill people with it? What about the danger of people who are willing to hold supremacy and steal, and make these false claims? Whatever that is, like, that's not your job. It's not your job. You identify things in order to make a mental note about who's allowed to get close to you and who's not allowed to get close to you. You make a mental note about circumventing your energy in just a certain kind of way, so that if somebody who thinks that they're siphoning, you give them your worst enemy and say, like, manage that. You know what I mean? Like, you can do the magic that is needed to put yourself into a safe position. But beyond that, it's not your job. It's not your job to do much more than ensure that whatever somebody is doing to harm you, like, stops. And that can be talking to your guides, talking to your ascended ancestors. That can be working with the energy so that there's, like, just little things and tweaks that you do so that you're not the one being extorted. That's all fine. These are proportional responses. But beyond the proportional response, you should be free of all of it so that you can actively be creating solutions, creating that net. Because you're not able to change the world. By identifying what's happening in the minds, you take a step forward towards what it means to reach somebody and create a net by pointing out, we need to be holding hands on this. But beyond that, the positioning and the constant positioning and the constant, diagnosing, this is not helpful. And so when we have, like, the anxiety and the metamorphosis, what is calling us out of our discontent, that shelter, is our lack of ability to see our own blind spots, that's legion. That is legion. I can tell you right now, even with all of the sight that I have, there are blind spots the size of cars. There's blind spots the size of cars. Everyone has them. Because the car is a good example, because I'm seeing cars and, like, the size of cars. Everyone has a blind spot in the car. Now we have little blinky things, but everyone has a blind spot when they look in the mirror in the car. Everyone has a blind spot. When you know you have a blind spot, when you understand that you don't have the picture complete, and then when you're able to access and really bring in to yourself and your heart and your mind and your knowing that there are systems of justice at play that you just don't understand, but they are working for you. That is true. That's even demonstrable. Once you're in a really good relationship with divine energies that are not working from petty places, you will see that the way that they bring justice, no, it does not make you feel ego satisfied, but because they're going to do it in a way that is whoa, but it is way worse than anything you could have ever brought or ever thought of. And like, we can't really look at people who've had really hard lives and point our fingers and say, oh, they must deserve it. They must at a later date, you know, do something to somebody that causes that. Because it's not always that way. It's not a hard and fast rule. There are certain roads that we walk, especially if you're a mystic, that actually necessitates levels of torture. So like, we are not the arbiter of what someone deserves and what someone does not deserve. In fact, the word deserve in any way, shape, or form is not something that we can like use in a healthy way. For me to say I deserve a warm, you know, bed at night, and like that's because of everything that I've done, that's the kind of person that I am, like I deserve good things. But also know that the person working in the mine that just happened to be born into slavery, like if they don't deserve exactly what you deserve, then there is no deserve at all. There's no system of justice that operates around rewards and punishments where somebody who is having a hard time is being punished and somebody who's having an easy time is being rewarded. That is absolute garbage. But the way that these cycles work with karma is that our choices and what we choose to participate in and what we choose to be a part of in the world and a part of, like, are we creating a net or are we cutting the strings? And that decision right there is where all of the justice happens, right there. And ignorance of doing stupid things, like there is something to be said for like the teenager who's so mean because they just have had no experience of the world and they don't have a depth of field and they're operating through a type of privilege. That's a problem writ large, but things are proportional. These karmic systems are proportional. So people who are making decisions to see their faults and change them and participate in justice in the world by being a better person and being a good person to others, they are participating with the forces of good. And whatever they have gone through is only going to bring them into a place of healing advancement in one way or another. But it's the people who choose to be the representation of crappy crap and to cut and snip all of the pieces of the net that are meant for everybody. They're subject to a different set of rules. And so like that is the bigger system here, you know, I mean, and that does take some level of faith, because with the Page of Wands and the Page of Pentacles being about false starts, and the Lover's card being about like this anxiety and this metamorphosis, like, is there a justice system in the world that will bring me into a place where I can like actually advance and actually mature spiritually? Or am I constantly going to get to a place of mature spirituality and sight and wisdom and giftedness where all you're going to see is everyone else is a crappy, horrible, no good, and that it's just darkness and terrible and there's no progress? Like, this is where we have all the false starts instead of the success that we need and want. And so with this new chapter here and this decision and the topsy-turvy, there will always be somebody in the room, in the space, on the block, in the stadium that is willing to hold the crappy energy and take it into the world and be it. There's never going to be not that, but that person is on a learning curve, and justice is an arc, and they are either going to make different decisions that bring their looped experiences into an awakened enlightenment, or they're going to make selfish decisions for the rest of their lives, and they are subject to the food of the energies that they entertain. And they become the energies that they entertain. And the energies that they entertain place them in an afterlife at a conscious level. And whatever they're willing to do by way of forgetfulness and going back into another life and redoing these lessons again, they're still feeding a system where making that choice is what separates you, like, from having to do it over and over and over again, or just being graduated already. And so like that has a heaven and hell sort of feel to it. But that's what I, you know, when I talk to my guides about these things, and when I talk to them about, you know, my own participation and making sure that I'm not like adding to my grief by doing stupid nonsense things, I'm going to still make mistakes. In fact, I made a mistake That wasn't even a mistake. I'm still going to have to be in positions where I'm going to have to do things or be a part of things that are going to, my guides are going to point to something that I suffered and said like, no, you already went through that karma. Like that's why I have this relationship with like making bad decisions and doing bad things and having like, you know, these moments of growth. Like I do have the perspective of, I did this today, the karma was yesterday, or the karma's coming, you know, in the future, or the karma is going to be me becoming emptied out and hollowed out and basically just a puppet for whatever knows that, you know, that they can keep this like spiritual immaturity. And so the bottom line is like, you know, this does come down to like choices and sublimation related to justice, and even the wheel of time being what it is. That shouldn't discourage you. Like there's something here that like I'm not exactly able to like all the way get, because I've never even tried to explain that concept of the wheel of time, because I've always been worried about the way that people would interpret that, or what they would think of it, because it is a perfect system. It's brilliant, it's amazing, it's oh my god, but it takes the personal agency, free will out of the experience of the story that you're moving through, because you're stuck with that story. You know, you're working out that story, you're working out that lesson. But in terms of what has access to you and what your experience will be within that story, you know, that's where all the choices are. So it's like an impersonal system, but it's also a very personal system. What you're traveling with will determine your experience more than the route that you are traveling. And so, you know, this is where, you know, the anxiety about the metamorphosis is like, this is such a, you know, empowerment in the Voyager here. You know, the journey itself will empower you, and the energies that work with you in that empowerment will bring you where they want you to be at the pace that they want you to go. Energies that are just using somebody, and like by that I'm like talking about in a way that is like, you know, like not good. Energies that are using someone will give them an incredibly fast rise, because they know that it's a crash and burn, and they're using it for the experience. The body ends up being, you know, my guys are showing me a terrible vision right now that I don't want to look at, but either their life in their body begins, yeah, like this is so crazy. I don't know how to explain. It's like I would never. This is not a way to explain it, but it's kind of R-rated, right? The vision that my guide is giving me about an individual with their lifespan, when they hollow themselves out and they're willing to just go wherever the gratification is for their own individual self, and they're not a part of building something greater for everyone else. When they're competitive, right? They're like picking up these energies. Like what my guides are showing me in the way of a vision is somebody satisfying themselves with their hand. And I don't want you to attach that to like what we would normally identify as like sexuality, because the information that my guide is giving me is there are energies that will jerk off with your life and leave you nothing of yourself and of your growth and of who you are. They will see the stories that you have to go through. They will like work on making sure that you are just their vehicle. And there will be no satisfaction in that. And then you will get into the end of your life and you will have seen just the way that everything that gave you like a little bit of satisfaction like took you for a ride, instead of you like manifesting and creating and growing and maturing and all of that stuff. And the reason that our guys are bringing that in such a gruesome way is because they're saying like that is the grim and gruesome part of the fairy tale. And people know when they're not having a genuine experience of their life, because they're not in their life. They're watching their life and they're trying to get into their life. And I don't want us to feel afraid by that image because it was harsh, but I think the reason that we're getting that image is that we're meant to take hold of our lives. We're meant to take hold of our lives in a way where we're fully embodying ourselves and embodying our experience and having an authentic experience and expressing authentically. And all of that requires that we know ourselves. And the way that we know ourselves is by not running away from ourselves. And the way that we're not running away from ourselves is by facing the gruesome reality of like what we're doing, why we're doing it, where it's coming from, and taking power over what that means, because you're stuck with the story that you're in. But how you move through that story and how it feels to move through that story has everything to do with the energies that you're hosting in one way or another and performing into your life and into the world. And this is a big, intricate net, that we're all kind of a part of. And nobody's making perfect decisions all the time. No one's a perfect person. But that character building that comes from really looking at this stuff, really facing it, really going into the grief, really going into the devastation, making the meaning, having that meaning turn into knowledge, having that knowledge turn into wisdom, having that wisdom turn into power and creativity, power and expression, power in that your giftedness is operational and not just being used to satisfy your position for just another day, of a hamster wheel, and like most people are somewhere with this, but the position that we're in when we're dealing with the angel of justice, which falls injustice on one side, justice on the other. What am I going to stand? What am I going to do? Am I going to perpetrate injustice? The way that I perpetrate injustice is by picking it up and condemning people. I condemn that one, and that one, and all of their activities. And I look forward to knowing that my guides always have a field day with the people who are willing to do that stuff. That's not looking at that situation, looking at the divine and saying, that has nothing to do with me. I don't really care what they're doing. I'm going to spend this time with the divine. I'm going to spend this time in co-creation, and I'm going to bring that authentic expression and bring the power of that authentic expression into the world. It will then do a great many things because it is empowered by divine energies. And that's what's meant for me. And the growth arc that I have with whatever I'm creating is one that is commensurate to my strength in managing what is mine to manage. Somebody once came up to me and they were concerned about somebody who was doing something, and they were like, don't you worry about like destiny swapping? And I'm like, no, because anybody who tries to carry the weight of something that's meant for me is going to immediately feel the strain. And that will be a punishment that will unfold with time, But like the bottom line is like we can't be anything other than ourselves and do anything other than the path that is meant for us. And when we're running when we are running from ourselves and our paths, all kinds of crap happens, and we end up in this loop of punishment instead of a loop of enlightenment. And so there's no, so like to step out of participating in justice is in part being aware of the things that are unjust and not wanting to participate in those things and making that a point. But it's also calling yourself out and being like, where's my energy going? Am I the chief justice of everyone around me who is doing wrong and right? It's tricky, because again, you have to be mindful, and you have to make decisions, and you have to make adjustments to protect yourself. But beyond that, you should not stay there. You should not continue to perpetrate in avenues of vengeance. The vengeance will happen because of who and what the person is willing to hang out with. They will have systems of punishment instead of systems of enlightenment. If you're feeling like you're in cycles of punishment, but you haven't done anything to anyone to deserve it, this expansion here is like, that's where the expansion comes in, and that's where the roots come in. And again, like all of this is so tricky because it may look like people are getting away with murder. It really may look that way, because the way that forces that use people's lives for their own pleasure, even if that pleasure is never going to be satisfying and not even, like that was such a weird vision, and I would have just ignored it and dismissed it. But like my guides kept on being like, we're trying to tell you something here with this. But, when people are willing to host the reason why it won't look like the people that are willing to bring evil in the world are suffering is because they might be having a what looks like a successful experience of stealing from people. You know what I mean? Like hurting people, maligning people, manipulating people. They may be like having a picture, standing on a stage where it looks like they're surrounded by success as a result of these behaviors. But who's having the success as a result of those behaviors? The person who is engaged in those behaviors is not getting satisfaction. They're looking at their life from a distance. They always look at their life from a distance. They always taste things from a secondary position. They always experience things from a secondary position. And the energies that are willing to be around them and use them also hate them. And they have to live with that too. And so because an energy that is not crossed over, an energy that is not ascended, that wants to experience life through you, wants to experience their life. They want to have the experience of life. They don't want to experience life through you. They'll do it because there's no other choice. But they will also harbor a hatred for you that will come out when you're with another person and you're finding that like every time you're in an intimate relationship, there's like this berating that happens. And again, some of that is being attracted to narcissists. Some of that is the spirit that the narcissist was willing to hold because they were hollowed out is participating, like with whatever is happening here in terms of, even the belief that you deserve that kind of treatment, that like even a self-hatred that would allow for that kind of treatment is influenced by energies that are against you in one way or another. An ascended energy doesn't want to live through you to have an experience of eating too much because they love food, or eating too little because they want to look a certain way with your body. Like that's not it. Like the experience of a ascended energy that is working with you, you're going to see it as evidenced in your life, in the way that you speak, in the way that you create, in the opportunities that are available to you, in the pacing that your guides pace you, because you're not overwhelmed. You're never like capsized. They will be with you for every lesson that you have to learn, so that there is a bumper like bowling situation that you're going to have. And so when you make these right decisions, when you participate in an evolution of emancipation for humanity, when you are part of what it means to create a net, then you're going to, in some ways, receive rewards that don't necessarily look like success the way that you think about success. It'll be success in relationships with people that are placed like with you, that you can enjoy really being seen, really being heard, really being understood, really being loved. It's about being placed in a position where your talents are your own, so that when you're operating through them, it's effortless and it's very easy and it flows. Like there's so many ways in which there's blessing in living a certain kind of life and a certain kind of experience, and it doesn't look like winning the rat race. Winning the rat race is emptying yourself out and being easily puppeteered. Because success can exist from winning a rat race, hosting all kinds of energies that are absolutely happy to give you some veneer of success, but never let you have the experience of living. Or, you can have trial and error and growth, trial and error and growth, trial and error and growth, and just continue to expand and take up more gravity in that expansion and become more and like graduate and graduate and graduate and graduate until you're at a point where you are just rooted in the divine, which means that you don't have to stay in the loops of this life. That karma will have played itself out. You'll be able to move on, to become something more, to have a grander experience. And if you're already making choices that put you in positions where it's hard, you're up against things, but everything that you're up against provides for a learning experience that makes you greater, that makes you better, that makes you stronger. You're with good energies, and good energies are with you. That's the truth. If all you're doing is running and spinning and 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 and spinning, and you're having all these experiences and you never once feel nourished, you never once feel appreciated, you never once feel full, then something might be driving you. And there's no shame in that. But when we're able to disengage from the stuff that's driving us that isn't really us and really connect with who we are and what it is to experience our life from a place of anchored center of gravity within ourselves, where we know ourselves, where we're in relationship with ourselves, and then we can be in relationship with the divine. The divine doesn't want to have a relationship with something that is unable to sort of like, it's like, I don't want to say that anybody's ever rejected, because no one's ever rejected, but I see this in cards a lot of times where people will be called into a relationship with the divine and what it means to step into themselves and leave situations where they were driven and puppeteered by some story or another that wasn't them. Like, that takes a lot of bravery, that takes a lot of effort, and people will have that emancipation and they'll step into the world. And they'll be a part of the spiritual journey that is bringing them into expansion, that is bringing them into better character, that is bringing them into a level of strength, that is bringing them into a level of power even. You know, once you're able to break free from one story, you're moving into another. But each story that you move in provides you with an opportunity to either break through or shelter in contented supremacy. You know what I mean? Like, whenever you kind of like into a new story, like mastering that story, like, where are you going to find yourself? Are you emancipated from being the slave of one kind of story to only find yourself enslaved to a different kind of story? And what I mean by that is, maybe you're no longer enslaved to the story where you have to work and serve the king and be the king's perfect servant. Maybe that's not your story anymore. But is your story step on everyone's neck that you might have to in order to secure your place in position in the work world where the patriarchy is big daddy instead of daddy king? Like, there's a transfer there, an ends that justifies the means, where you're willing to do anything to meet some standard that will establish you in status that is like the reward of like this system, right? And whether you're the golden child of a narcissist or you're the golden child of a narcissist system, what it means to sort of emancipate yourself and enter, like, go from injustice to justice is more than just emancipating yourself from a bad story and pointing at the people who aren't emancipated yet and judging them from your new place of supremacy. You still have to graduate from this new place, because first you have to identify, you have to pull yourself out, and yes, you may notice that they are not where you are in wisdom, in strength, in character, in holding power, because you have gone through that portal of change. But if you don't graduate from the new supremacy, you're just waiting for new energies to like to notice that you're just appropriated a new story over the old one, and now you're still the golden child of a narcissist. It's just a narcissistic system that you have mastered instead of the narcissist's approval. So like, we are in this always, all the time. Everybody, we're all working our way through this. Nobody is exempt. But the high call that like justice gives us in terms of what it means to, you have to root in justice, which means that your roots are not in self-satisfaction. Your roots are not in comparison. Your roots are not in meeting standards that like make you a different kind of golden child or a different kind of narcissist. Like, that can't be your roots. Your sense of self and your sense of value is not going to be what you produce, because what you produce has everything to do with your privilege. And so when you understand that, and you understand that there's no such thing as deserving, not for you or anybody else, and you're able to really look at this notion of, what am I working for? Like, what am I looking to achieve? What am I gaining from this? Am I experiencing my life, or am I being driven by something? If I'm being driven by something, what is driving me? Is that something that's going to drive me off a cliff? Am I just going to get another 10, 15 years into serving something that doesn't serve me and notice that all of those years were eaten too? Or are you going to develop a relationship with yourself? And like, and I have a guide here who is saying that there are people that like, it's not like there are people that like are so disconnected from themselves and so running from themselves and so chasing the dopamine hits of achievement, you know, with one master or another, that like that's kind of like a nefarious, shitty behavior, right? But then there are people that, like, this is the conditioning from childhood. They've never even experienced themselves. There's no condemnation in any of what I'm saying about where you fall on the wheel of enlightenment when it comes to breaking free from levels of indoctrination. Like, we're all on this wheel. My great sin, which you probably hear coming through loud and clear, is that I still operate in the shadow of justice, at the side of injustice, because I want to really punish the people that I see making the world a terrible place. But the person who is persuaded of a God and a heaven and a hell and a Christian dogma, who believes that the sinner is making the world a bad place, like, here's where that person's an ignorant fool that is deciding, like, you know, to judge the world. But there's a lot of blind spots that we're all carrying when it comes with judging the world. And so I'm glad that I have a huge problem, you know what I mean, that is my own, in talking about the problems that everybody has in one way or another, and the problems that people are willing to participate in, or the problems that people unwittingly participate in. Because I keep on going back to this, I saw this show, and I think I mentioned it in the last reading. What the hell is it called? Oh, Apple Cider Vinegar, right? It's on Netflix, and like, again, I didn't really get that far into it, but I picked up on something where I was like, oh, I freaking hate that energy, and like that energy, I see it operating through a lot of people, and like and there's something to that. You don't need to watch it. I don't know if it's good or not, because I didn't really get anywhere with it. But the point of the matter is there are two people in that. I think it's got 3 or 4. It's like a series. Maybe it's a short series. There are two people in that story. One who is operating as the villain, evil, terrible, no good, lying, fake, like horrible human being, you know, worst human being ever, faking cancer. And the other one actually has cancer and actually is living through the story of their own life and reporting from ground zero of themselves and their authenticity. And so you have these two people, one who's like in this halo position, still living through a circumstance that would probably be considered as punishing, but becoming this beautiful, incredible, amazing individual as a result of it, even making mistakes the whole way. Right? But then you have this other person who is making the world a worse place, who is actively spreading misinformation, who is hurting people that they don't even know that they're hurting, that they've never even met, because they're posing as somebody with a certain wisdom and expertise that they know that they don't have. And as a result of it, they're getting fame, they're getting acclaim, they're getting money, and all of it is built on a lie of intimidating the person with the real experience, who's actually having like that legitimate like story to move through and operate through and report through. The person who has abandoned their life for a story that's not their own, that is operating from this place, that is very much evil, like, is arguably living a life where they are getting eaten up and chewed out and being jerked off with by energies that are despicable, you know, and their entire experience, because I'm looking at this from like a psychic experience, like perspective, where they're not winning a damn thing. Everything that they have gained is something that has brought them farther from themselves, not closer to themselves. Like, that is the true hell. The true hell is not the organic experience of self moving through a story and growing through that story and expanding and changing through that story with that authentic voice and that authentic place. So the circumstances have very little to do with it, but the energies that you ally with and bring into yourself and bring into the world, that's going to be your experience, and that's going to be the experience of somebody who hurts you. And it doesn't matter where in the wheel of time their karma falls, they're going to experience that karma, because the nature of what karma is you're going to learn this lesson until you stop hurting yourself and others. And I don't care how many lives you need to do it on. Like, that's our guides. That's the gods. You will come back and be captive again and again and again and again and again until you stop taking captivity of something in relationship to somebody else. Because that whole Western conquering, identify the object of desire, strategically figure out how to make it yours, like occupy, like that colonization, we're always sort of like stuck with that kind of conditioning of the only way that you're going to survive is if you can take territory and hold it. And that doesn't even give you time to figure out who you are. So you might be in territory and holding territory that isn't even yours because you were so afraid of what it meant to face some aspect of yourself that you went 1,000 miles in the direction of something that appealed to you but wasn't you, right? And so with this this pacing card here with the Son of, well, no, that's actually the Sun and the Page of Wands, the Son of Feathers, this energy of false starts, you're only going to get so far. It's just like, that's going to be like the real deal. You know what I mean? Like, and I keep on losing this channel because I'm finding it very hard to be in it, but with preservation being about, you are preserved through this process. You are meant to grow through this process. Like, you will get through these lessons. One day or another day, at some point in your life, you will have had enough of being disconnected with yourself. You will begin to connect with yourself. Like, everyone goes through this. And that's how we get placed in the next world. What are you holding? What are you identifying with? What are you bringing into the world? What are you becoming as you bring those things into the world? How does that end up setting you up for whatever you're positioned for in the life that you're leading and the life that you're moving into? And how many times you're going to have to come back around and go through these lessons. Now, I almost lost the thread and I almost lost the channel because I have a guide in front of me that's saying, like, what about, because I see a picture, what about the people who just can't get a hold of themselves, can't find that core, can't find that center, don't know themselves, don't know how to get to themselves? It's a trauma response. Like, they're running because it's too painful. Like, where's the compassion and all of that? That's the thing, that's why I'm on the injustice side, because I don't have a lot of compassion, and I got to work on that. And that's something that I need to bring into my life in order to free myself and allow myself to create at the highest caliber. I hold myself back because of ways in which I don't want to even be generous. And so, like, we all have levels of this. Everyone, nobody is exempt. Absolutely nobody is exempt. But what choices you make and intentions and outcomes, like, this is going to be where you got to see something. And if you see something and it's wrong, that you turn around. You don't just notice something wrong and then find all the reasons why it's going to have to be okay, or it needs to be okay because, oh my gosh, you don't just notice that there's a behavior that is dysfunctional and not change it in yourself. Like, I cannot be in any way a front-facing public leadership position of any kind in any way, shape, or form. And my dog, that was so perfect. Oh my gosh, that was so perfect. So I was just talking about how I don't want any, like, like my wisdom or whatever, from the years and years and years of stuff, like, maybe put me in a position with a certain, like, authority, because I'm speaking from an authentic place, and that's the power in anyone's voice. But I don't want a position that, like, would put me at the head of any room for any reason, because I hate people. I love all of you guys, you know what I mean? But, like, the bottom line is, like, I just, if I was talking to my guides about this, and this is personal, so I don't know, but we're gonna just go there. I was talking to my guides about the reality of psychic abilities and relationships, and being in relationship to individuals, being in relationships to groups, and how I always put all these walls up to keep my vision limited because I don't want to be too exposed to human nature, because the most perfect individual that exists in nothing but angelic glory will do something fucked up and will have a terrible thought. And if I pick up on it, I have to reckon with that, right? And so I have these very big walls, but these walls do keep me from close relationships. And so I was talking to my guide and I was saying, you know, like, how this gift, the psychic abilities, is such a curse in relationship, just like generally speaking. And they were like, well, yeah, if you can't forgive people, that's the right answer. And you're not going to be good in a relationship unless you can bring forgiveness and or operate with forgiveness or have a forgiveness kind of a mindset. And I understand what forgiveness is. I know what sublimation is. I can have all the wisdom in the world, but if I can't put that into action, there really is no place for me, you know, that would make me holding that power and like yielding that power something that I would want to do. Now, the funny thing about my dog, like just totally punctuating that so heavily, is I'm sitting here and I'm saying, I don't want any kind of a certain kind of a role, you know, I don't want to be put in any kind of certain kind of position. And even if I mentally and emotionally and psychically see it, I still like have all this fear and all of this holding myself back and all of this sabotaging myself because I'm looking at the angel of injustice and I'm on the shadow end of it. So like the problem with doing shit wrong or being in the wrong or operating in the wrong and not moving and really getting through that is that it'll stop you from progress and it'll stop you from your place. Because the dog was barking and I was so mad because I was like looking at my guides like, are you like, did you want to make fun of me? Like, are you trying to like, you know, make it hard? I'm just admitting that that's hard for me. And like, why the dog, you know, like I have this relationship with my guides where I'm like, why would you punctuate that moment? Because it's a hard enough moment. And I'm getting up to like go and like, you know, put the dog outside in the backyard. It's fenced in, but like, you know, just kind of doing the things that I'm trying to do because I'm not going to be here that much longer. She won't be out there that long. And I'm very, very annoyed about it the whole time. Now, while I was sitting here judging myself, you know what I mean? That superiority, it works against you and it works for you. You can't judge somebody else heavily without being a very heavy judge of yourself. So I'm sitting here judging myself and saying, you know, I really have a hard time with forgiveness. You know, every time I see something really nasty, like I have a really hard time letting it go. And I therefore like don't think I am worthy of any like position, you know, in anywhere in any world for any reason. But what was my dog barking at? My dog was barking because the mailman was bringing me a bunch of presents that I did not think were coming, that I didn't expect, and that I was kind of surprised to see. So the thing, your calling in life might show up, you know what I mean? And like it's, and that calling is like some gifts, you know, because my birthday is actually really soon and I like that. I don't know how it happened this way, but the synchronicity, you're going to miss out on your gifts. You know what I mean? Like these opportunities for growth where you're able to like see that something needs to change, see that you need to make certain adjustments, become a different kind of a person in order to have the experience that is meant for you. It means confronting with like the dog barking loudly, you know what I mean? Like actually getting the message that says, no, you have a place and a position in the area of giftedness that you've been given for a very real purpose and a very real reason. And whatever you feel like is in the way, you know what I mean? And that is all for all of us, you know, anything that is in the way. It's not that you can't have certain things. It's that you have to be able to forgive, you know, like you have to be able to forgive. So, you know, this is a false start. And we have false starts, you know, that enable us to be confronted by the things that we have to change. And when we're put in a position where we see that there's something that we have to change, we're meant to make that change. Because with the 10 of coins here with wealth and the father of, this isn't a gifted deck. I still haven't really learned it. But we've got wealth and we've got the father of coins. That's established. That's generational wealth. That's what's for you. That's what's meant for you, you know, and we all have some version of that in terms of what we're gifted with and what we have to bring into the world. It is so hard to find ourselves. It is so hard to get to that core. It is so hard to deal with the issues that are in the way of our getting to that core. Why the heck am I judging people the way that I do? Like, what? Because I'm not looking at myself, you know? And so when we, you know, all of that to say, you know, and this has been a kind of a convoluted reading. I think the readings over the next couple of weeks are like I'm moving into territory with these readings that my guides want me to move into, which these territories are things that I actually personally also have to work on. And so it's a little bit hard for me to do this, but we talked about the technology of forgiveness. We understand the mechanics of it, what it means to be the change we want to see in the world. It means going at a slower pace, allowing for the pacing of the universe. The pacing of the universe is a gift. If you're 0 to 100, that's something else's agenda 98% of the time. If your guides are pacing you and you're able in that pacing to see the things that need work along the way and make the adjustments along the way, that's going to make you stronger. Everything that you're up against is going to make you stronger. Am I going to learn how to forgive? Are we all going to learn how to forgive? We know the mechanisms to do it. We have to be able to work with our guides to get there. Like, that's going to determine success and failure, but more than anything else. Because it's in a lot of ways it's not, I think this is a hard thing to bring through, but we're not always what establishes us. In fact, I don't think that we establish ourselves. I think our guides establish us, and I think they establish us where we are. I think the gods establish us. I think they establish us in relationship to where we are positioned with the empowerment and the journey. I don't think that there's a cursed life and a blessed life. I think that if you look at somebody's life and they're in a mansion and they have all these things and look at what they got and how did they get it and why are they so lucky, and you compare it to yourself and you think, oh my gosh, I am not loved by the gods. Look at my life. You have no way of comparing. and there are lives that seem like ease, but those people aren't even embodying those lives. I don't even want to tell you spiritually what it looks like when people are in certain positions. I don't even want to tell you what I see of people who are holding resources and inadvertently harming people without holding of resources. People that look like they have the most luxurious lives. I don't even want to tell you what I see spiritually. I'm serious. So part of this need for humility when it comes to judging others also comes to judging yourself. When it comes to judging other people's lives, also comes to judging your own life. We are pretty, to live in this time is to go through a lot and to be dealing with a lot of really difficult things. But to live in this time is also to have access to ways of self-care that there's just so much in the way of what it means to really step into your life, really step into what it means to love your life, really step into what it means to love yourself, really step into what it means to look at your wounds. If I'm struggling with getting to a place of forgiveness because I can't stand the way people treat each other everywhere, always, then I'm never going to get the gifts of any of those relationships. And there's also a reason, a phobic, terrible, I don't want to look at myself, I don't want to look at the pain, I don't want to look at what this means in terms of facing something, truth, to when we are coming up against a challenge, like something like forgiveness over and over and over again, and we're unable to do it. With the bones and the ebb here and the union, nurturing, love, fullness, blessing, that is your birthright. You're created for all of that. But it's going to look maybe not like you think it does. So I'm going to get a little bit more. And the topsy-turvy, that's the life that we're in. Everything that I'm bringing through right now is struggle stuff. I don't think any of us are all the way there. The star and scarcity. As long as we believe in scarcity and our value is value as measured against somebody else, anybody else, anywhere. The most dangerous people in the world are not the conniving, mass murderers, believe it or not. Like how do I explain this? This is so hard to explain. I'm getting a lot of that with this reading, where like there are things that I'm like, ooh, sticky, oh, be careful. But the most evil people in the world are the mass murderers. Like, okay, fine, like let's give that. But one of the worst manifestations of evil that I see operational in the world that we're in is going to be the person that thinks everybody hates them. And I want to be careful about that, because again, we're in such a confrontational, crappy world. People are so awful. There are people that get nothing but treated like crap their entire lives just because they have a little uncanny valley or have some sort of like spiritual giftedness. Like, there's no hard and fast rules. There's no deserve. There's no system of rewards and punishments here. But there are ways in which things just naturally work. And so when you have somebody who is projecting on everyone around them some level of mistreatment towards themselves, right? It's because at the core, there's some level of like, that's a battleground. That's something to battle out. And either the person is going to say, like, stop and say to themselves, why do I keep on experiencing life in a way where I am noticing and keen to and picking up on and aware of, like, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, everybody hurts me. The reason that's a dangerous person is because if you don't stop and fix the problem at the level of your own heart and your own soul and your own mind, along the lines of telling yourself, I am worthy of love, I am lovable. There are going to be people who do not like me. There are going to be people who do not love me. But those are people who do not know me. Those are people who haven't taken the time to get to know me. Those are people who I haven't allowed to be close enough to me to know me. And their judgments of me do not matter. Okay? So that's like a realistic assessment of being liked or disliked, is that being liked is a process. It doesn't happen immediately, and you have to show up and put yourself on display in order for people to see you clearly and actually even remotely make that assessment. That's like a realistic sort of view. But if you aren't having that realistic view, and instead you're having a view that everyone hates you and everyone's trying to screw you over and everybody's against you, and you're seeing this in people, you're seeing ways in which they lie or manipulate, take things that, and without, offering any little like level of whatever, like when you kind of are able to clock all of that stuff, the truth of the matter is people are always going to disappoint you. And those people who are disappointing you in one way or another might be the best friends that you're ever going to have if you kind of go that distance. But if you believe that they don't like you, if you believe somebody doesn't like you, you're going to start pointing out all their flaws. Then you're going to decide they don't deserve to be where they are or who they're with for whatever reason. Then you might, in conversation with somebody, knock them down a little bit, and it might be enjoyable. And then you might, there's so many ways in which people react and dehumanize and manipulate the environment around a person that they perceive does not like them. In all likelihood, the person that they perceive doesn't like them doesn't feel that passionately about them, might dislike them enough to be dismissive, but that's at most. Now, that's not saying that there aren't these patterns to have to contend with, but what I am trying to point out is that if you love yourself enough, it doesn't matter what the people around you think, and that is the cure. And the person who really legitimately at their very core hates themselves and doesn't look at that and doesn't fix that and doesn't bring that, some work into that place of hurt and grief that probably is extraordinarily legitimate. If they don't do that, if they don't notice that thinking everybody hates them is because there's some part of them that believes that they're worth being hated, then they're not dismissing the people with the ancillary slights. And that doesn't mean that you can't be around people that are evil that really will knock you down and destroy you. You can. But even that is something that's a very different process than letting people in and letting people get to know you, and then they, make an assessment. If somebody is a narcissist who looks at you like a meal and they're just gonna devour everything that you have to offer and then like spit you out and lick the bones, that's a different kind of a situation. That's somebody who's being driven by forces that are cannibalistic, that they're cannibals, and so like everything that I'm saying, there's like some paradox related to it. And I think that as we get into the stickier territory, there will be a lot of paradox. But it's important to know that the greater system of justice is that the energies that you spend time with are the energies that you become. The important thing to notice is that if there's some stumbling block that keeps you from not being able to forgive, then that stumbling block is about you and not the other people. And if you want to be a part of the world in a way that creates a net, it's more than just relieving yourself from one story and emancipating yourself from one story and positioning yourself on a higher ground. It's more than that. You expanded, you do have a higher ground to look at and see the world through, but the people that haven't expanded, they don't get dehumanized because of where you're positioned. Otherwise, we have problems. And we're repeating what has been done to us. And so this is all really, really, really tricky. But when it comes to receiving the gifts that are meant for you in life, you only have access to being able to really have those gifts, unwrap them, and look at them if you're able to face whatever it is that you're telling yourself. Like I'm sitting here telling myself, like, I can't, I have to do something that because otherwise, I'm just whatever. I obviously have a calling with my life when it comes to being psychic, because I'm lopsided savant skills in that way. But if I feel like I can't do my work and be my authentic self in the way that I am so easily designed for and my entire life is positioned for, if I feel like I can't do that because I'm too angry at people and I can't forgive, that problem is me. And I'm the one who's standing in the way. And I'm the one who is keeping myself from what is meant for me. And there are going to be alarms that are set off around me when I'm engaging in that kind of behavior because of just how close I am to the divine. And when you're close to the divine, the alarms will go off. You will have to face these things. You will be in the process of expansion, but it's going to be a lot easier and a lot gentler, and your guides are going to be pacing the whole process, and you're going to get where you're going and where you're meant to go. And that's the faith walk. That's where you have faith in the energies that are guiding you and leading you and helping you encounter yourself and know yourself and grow through that experience. We're going to come across all kinds of other energies, and some of the energies that you hold will be kind of neutral. It's not all holding negative energies or holding positive energies. Sometimes it's holding an energy that's trying to figure out where you are, who you are, and what it means to express yourself. And that's going to be a trial and error where you have to watch yourself. What are you doing to engage with your actual voice? Is that engaging with your actual voice? And that's kind of where we are, and I'm there with you. This Father of Horns. I still have to actually officially learn this deck because it was recently gifted. I'm very grateful, but I never really looked at the book, so I'm just looking at this card and kind of feeling it through. But the reality here is that this is the process of living. Like, we're all sort of in some version of what it means to be somewhere, facing our own fears, facing that shadow or light aspect of some God. And when we think about the angel of justice as are we entering in and expressing from the shadow where it's perpetrating injustice, or are we entering in and expressing from that ascended place? That ascended place with justice is always going to be a place of forgiveness. From that place of forgiveness, there's no judgment that is vengeance. There's just judgment that is administrative. And so if you're feeling vengeance, you're not there yet. And it's hard. It really does. We're not supposed to be perfect people. We're on a journey of self-discovery and figuring it out. But this is, I think, a really fire and brimstone kind of message that we got. But I do think that that this is almost the whole story in one way or another. Where we position ourselves throughout the lifespan, what we become as a result of those choices and those positions. What else are we doing here if not participating in some form of a sorting process? And it's not a sorting, to heaven or to hell. Everybody that has ever, all of the ancient religions and spiritual belief systems, they had a very close connection with their ancestors, and they had an ability to talk with the dead. It wasn't taboo, and everybody knows it's a journey. Death is just another journey. You're getting ready to go on a whole other lifespan of experiences when you're done with this life, and it's going to bring you from one place to another, or you're going to go back and keep on doing these lives. And there's a lot of different ways in which that works itself out, but the bottom line is, this is almost everything. We talk about the energies that you hold and the energies that you choose to bring into the world day in and day out. I think we just are always there. But do we really talk about what it means to honestly see a flaw and change as a result of it? Put in the effort towards that change. Because that's kind of that's sort of the kicker. And that's the kicker in every spiritual belief system. Every spiritual belief system will present you with an opportunity for growth. You'll get so far with it. It'll present you with another opportunity for growth. You'll get so far with it. You'll move out of that ignorance of accidentally hurting people. You will make choices not to participate in a crappy world means that you get to be crappy too. There's so much here that does position us. And so knowing that none of the work that you're doing during the lifespan is wasted, that the lifespan is a puny nothing compared to where the process leads us into eternity, and the journey that you embark on from wherever you die from in terms of you're done with this lifespan and now you're positioned in the next, has everything to do with how you feel right now and what that inside of yourself feels like, and what it means to bring deliverance and emancipation and healing to that space. First and foremost, there is no other life objective, because that inner space is what you carry into the next world. And it depends where you end up on the next journey and the next lesson wheel, and there is something to that, and we can find it in religious religious syncretism, going all the way back. And so I think I'm going to leave that there. It was a lot of not really it wasn't working with the cards that much today. But I'm going to be interested in listening to this too, because this was hard to get through. So I'm wishing you all the best week, and I hope that you are doing well, and sending lots of love and lots of blessings. And I'm going to work on forgiving the world and everyone in it. And that's something that I'm definitely massively flawed. But I'm sure we all have some version of ourselves that needs some version of something, when it comes to forgiving injustice. So that's where we're going to leave it, and I will see you guys again soon.